tree climbing. Whether you want to be like Tarzan, be able to move like a monkey, or maybe you are a monkey. If you want to climb trees, then I'm going to teach you how to do it safely. It's important that before you do anything that I present in this video, climbing trees is dangerous. There is an inherent risk to climbing a tree, being up high, and falling, or branches breaking. And so this is a warning that you shouldn't climb trees because it's dangerous. But if you decide you're going to climb trees, this video is meant to make it as safe as possible for you so that we can avoid the risks that can come with climbing trees. I'm also not an arborist, so I'm not a professional when it comes to knowledge of trees. I just have basic knowledge that helps me in the type of climbing I do. Before you start climbing a tree, I would recommend that you're able to do a free hanging pull-up, at least one. That'll show that you have the strength to maneuver yourself through a tree safely. You are able to climb a tree without having to pull your full body weight up, but if you at least have that amount of strength, it'll help you in situations where you'll need it. We're ready to find our first tree to climb. So the first thing is that you want to find a strong, healthy tree. You want to make sure it's got nice, fluffy leaves growing off of it, and there's not a lot of dead branches, and it's not a dead looking tree. It's a little bit trickier to figure that out in the fall when everything looks dead, nothing has leaves. So I'd be more careful in the fall and winter if you're going to be climbing a tree. Ideally, if you can find a tree that's a strong tree, like an oak tree with a lot of strong branches, those are the best beginner trees to start with because you have a lot of coverage, so you know you're less likely to fall. There's always going to be something to grab onto, and the branches are always going to be sturdy. The perfect tree isn't always available, so just make sure whatever type of tree you climb, you're aware of what you're working with and you're cautious. Before you begin climbing, be sure to warm up, especially the shoulders. That's where I find it's most stressful on my body. Now it's time to actually test the surface of the tree, test the bark, because your grip to the tree is going to be one of the most important factors. Especially with pine trees like this, the bark can be very peely, which can be okay as long as you're expecting it, as long as you know that in some cases the bark might peel, so you never want to put your full weight hanging on it until you know that it's not going to slip on you. So now that we have our tree picked out, it's now time to plan ahead by prepping our route. So this is just a mental exercise of visualizing the way you're going to climb the tree. Now it's not always going to work out that way. Sometimes you'll start climbing a tree and realize you have to go a different way, but it is helpful to know how you're going to get up and how you're going to get back down before you begin climbing. All right, now we're starting our climb. It's important that you move slowly, that you get a feel for every branch you're grabbing. You observe it visually, make sure it looks like a healthy branch, and then when you grab it, make sure you feel its strength before you use it to pull yourself up or to put your foot on it. You can feel that it has the strength to hold you. Now, one of the hardest parts of tree climbing isn't the climbing part, it's the actually coming back down. So it's important that you have an idea of how you can get back down before you even start climbing. But while you're climbing, it's important to think about how you can get back down the way you're currently moving up. If you're new to climbing trees, it's important that you stay low as you can in the tree, just getting comfortable with climbing, with moving around, experimenting with the branches so you understand what will support your weight and what doesn't. And this way you're low down, so if something does happen that you're not expecting or prepared for, you're not going to have a huge fall. Always be cautious and always play it on the safe side. Before you even climb the tree, tell yourself that you're willing to stop and come back down at any point you feel unsafe. Because the higher you go, the higher the risk. If you're unsure and there's any hesitation, it's not worth it. Always try and grab as close to the trunk as you can, especially if you're unsure about the strength of the branch, because the closer you are here, the stronger the branch is going to be. The further out you get, the weaker it gets. I would just make it a habit of always grabbing close to the trunk, because if you accidentally grab a dead branch, you know it's going to be stronger at the trunk than out here where it's most likely to break. Same thing goes for foot placement. Always try and plant your foot as close to the trunk as possible. And sometimes if I want to be extra safe, I'll even have my foot going directly into the trunk. That way my weight is going into the trunk and the branch is only used to keep my foot from slipping. As you're climbing, try to always have at least 2 or 3 points of contact on the tree at all times. That's how you'll be the safest. This will allow you to disperse your weight between multiple branches and points on the tree so that not one branch is holding all of your weight. This also is important because if one branch does give out or one hand or foot slips, you always have another hold somewhere else so that you can save yourself or keep climbing. As you're climbing up, try to stay as close to the trunk as possible. The closer your center of gravity is to the trunk, the more structural integrity the tree will have with your weight being supported. It also means the trunk is there to use if you need it. The trunk is the strongest part of the tree, so you can actually use it to help support your weight, whether it's using a bear hug or wrapping your hand around it to get some leverage. Sometimes if it's too big, it won't be helpful. But keep that in mind, the trunk is like your safety line as you go up, which leads into my next point, which is always prepare to fall. This isn't to say that you're planning on falling. This is at any point in the tree climb, if something were to break or something were to slip and you start falling, you know how to recover and catch yourself. One method is simply to hug the trunk, and that's why it's good to stay close to the trunk as you're climbing, because if you can hug the trunk, it's not going to be comfortable, but it's better than falling 10 or 20 feet from the tree, and you'll be able to slow yourself down with friction or be able to at least catch branches if you do move at all. But in general, I found as soon as you bear hug a tree, you don't go anywhere. You're able to just grab on and hold on and keep yourself in place while you figure out what to do next. Now, you will get scraped up when doing the bear hug or just in general climbing a tree, and that's okay. It's better that you get scraped up than that you actually fall from the tree and get a serious injury. Now, make sure that as you're climbing, you always keep some fuel in the tank. This means that you're never totally burning yourself out while in the tree. You always want to have a little bit of strength and stamina left if you need to make your way back down or get into a position where you can rest. Climbing in the tree isn't meant to be your conditioning. Conditioning you do on ground with pull-up bars or low branches. As I'm in the tree, I'm also thinking about balance. How does it feel where I'm at? Sometimes I can't always have a branch I'm hanging from. Sometimes it's a matter of like pushing against the branches around me to keep me centered in the tree. So always have a sense of balance and control and how you're shifting your movement as you go from one branch to the next. If you do end up getting yourself into a situation where you're uncomfortable or you feel unsafe, the most important thing is that you don't panic, that you try and stay relaxed and focused on what you're doing, whether that's taking deep breaths and focusing on your breath while you try and figure out what you need to do. If you start panicking, you're going to wear yourself out really quick and you're going to make mistakes, and so it's important to learn how to calm and relax yourself while you're in the tree. Now, you can climb trees with shoes or bare feet. The reason I do it barefoot is because it gives me more feeling of the tree as I'm climbing. I can feel on my foot whether the bark is going to peel out and cause me to slip, which actually is quite frequent when I'm wearing shoes. Sometimes I feel like my shoe is gonna grip in a certain spot, but then the bark breaks away and my foot slips, and then I have to catch myself, which can be freaky. Whereas when I'm barefoot, I find it's much more rare for my feet to slip out. And our feet actually naturally have really good grip on trees, so it's fun for me to experiment with what I can do, not depending on shoes. If you're not used to barefoot training though, I would recommend you start with shoes until your feet are a little bit more conditioned to barefoot training, and then you can start slowly incorporating barefoot tree climbs. So there are a lot of methods and techniques for actually climbing a tree. It'll be on you to use some of your creativity to figure that out, but I will be releasing a video on 10 ways to climb a tree that will help give you some ideas to expand the capabilities and the types of trees that you can climb. So there's your basic tips for climbing a tree safely. So let me know in the comments if you've ever climbed a tree before and what the experience was like. But otherwise, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you stay safe out there and have fun.